fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
It's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome. Day night. You're watching the Pro Truck Showdown, round 4 of this fantastic championship, and we're at Charlotte Motor Speedway's Roval layout for this particular round. Last time we raced here was in the summer series over the summer break, and now we get to race here for proper championship glory. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, as always, Cameron Dance. Cam, it's been a while since we were at Charlotte Motor Speedway last, but I think this place is certainly going to shake things up as we take a look at the championship standings. Brenton Hobson with the most wins of anyone at 4, but only 5 points ahead of his teammate Glenn Postlethwaite.
Yeah, it's been a very much SSR domination style past few rounds for Mr. Hobson and Mr. Postlethwaite, so we'll see whether they can continue this form into Charlotte tonight, and whether they're going to be able to get another one on the board, or whether someone else is going to come to the party and take the spoils.
Yes, indeed. Lockie Dalton did that at Phillip Island last round, taking his first win of the season. And Mitchell Mccloud down there in 3rd place. He's got 1 win to his name, as does Justin Howe, but Mitch has quite a bit of work to do, I think, if he wants to overcome that lead that the Synergy Sim Racing duo have in the 88 and the 95. We're in qualifying now, determining who is going to be starting on pole for the first race tonight. And as usual in this series, we got 3 races coming up. A 5-lap first race, then a 7-lap second race, 9 laps to end off the night. And Glenn Postlethwaite just clattering the wall out of turn 1 there. I just noticed, I think that might be lap time invalidated for him, but he's continuing.
Yeah, I'd say possibly is, based on how hard he hit it, but who knows, he might have just got away with it in the end, but we'll see what happens when he comes across the start-finish line to finish but certainly won't want to be starting down the back to kick this night off.
Yeah, certainly not. He's got a battle with his teammate to think about here tonight, leaving down a couple of strips of rubber out of the turn coming onto the oval. It's a very compact circuit here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The turns come thick and fast, and coming up to one of the prime overtaking spots on the track, the chicane on the back straight. It was tightened up for the NASCAR Cup Series race in 2018, and Posy using all of the curb and then some. These trucks really do like bouncing across those bumps, but he's got to be careful once again as he comes in towards this final chicane to end the lap. Could very easily invalidate your lap here with an off track. If you push the limits a bit too far, could get a slowdown as well. Posy goes across the line, and it looks like that lap has indeed been invalidated for him. So that's going to be a back-of-the-grid start. His teammate Brenton Hobson, meanwhile, has put it on pole. 1 minute 32.054. What can drivers like Aaron Russell do?
Yeah, certainly. What can they do? Mitchell Mccloud has just got to the pole position by 2 tenths, but Russell barely clipping the wall on the way through there, and unfortunately going to be invalidating that lap, so you'll start further down the order as well. So a few drivers actually making some small mistakes throughout the field and invalidating laps.
Indeed. Let's see if Bob King can avoid the dreaded 0x contact. No, he cannot. With that bit too deep of an entry into the turn coming onto the oval. It's almost a double apex corner, just keeps on going. Ryan Jones, meanwhile, who we saw suffer when we last raced at this track, he had to perform a redress on the very last lap and lose some positions, and it looks like that lap has been invalidated as well. No, actually. There we go. Timing took a couple of seconds to update. P6 for Jones so far. He's been beaten by Simon Mazzomo there, who's really coming on strong in terms of form. What about Justin Howe then? One win to his name, which he took at Silverstone, I believe. No,
Yes.
It was at Daytona, the opening round.
Yes, that's right. On the one of the races where it was a little bit drama filled on the way to the line, but certainly managed to get his way into victory lane. Bob King definitely invalidating his lap by the looks of it. So certainly a number of drivers out there have invalidated their laps from just barely touching the walls or getting off track or a slide on or something. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the race. But coming across the line is Howe, and he's not going to set a representative lap time by the looks of it. So he too will start down the back.
Yeah, that is a big shame there. What about Sam Mccloud, Mitchell's dad? His son is currently on pole. Let's see if the elder Mccloud can put together this lap. Went a bit deep into the chicane initially, which compromises his exit, but it's going to be a flat-out blast around this final banked turn of the oval before you have to bring it way down low for the final chicane. It seems like many drivers here have not been able to set representative lap times, so we might see them coming forward in the race. There's definitely going to be some shuffling for position, but Sam Mccloud comes across the line, and it's 1 minute 36.123 for him. And unfortunately, that lap's been invalidated as well. So we're going to go now to the starting grid, and I see... I don't know if I saw the pace truck out there on the circuit. It looks like we're actually going for a rolling start here tonight, which is interesting. With the final turn being the way it is, it's right before the start-finish line. But Mccloud and Hobson on the front row, Hayden Veld and Sam Devantier on the second row there, with Mazzomo and Jones sharing 5th and 6th. Daniel Stevens and Sam Stride 7th and 8th, and it's Dwayne Preece and Philip Howe that round out the top 10.
And you're going to have Ricardo Morganti and Brian Chizzy, followed by Glenn Postlethwaite starting in 13th, and Ben Snell at 14th. Gregory Favell rounds out the top 15, Bob King 16th, 17th will be Aaron Russell, just now 18th, 19th, Todd Maxwell, Damien Westbrook rounds out the top 20, and Sam Mccloud round out the field.
And that's 9 drivers there that came out of qualifying without setting a representative lap time. We should definitely look to see drivers like Glenn Postlethwaite and Ben Snell move forward in the field. Justin Howe as well. Drivers like Todd Maxfield and Damien Westbrook are very familiar with the shenanigans in the midfield, and they will want to avoid that. But with the way this circuit is, we're certainly going to be getting some interesting racing tonight. There's not much space between corners, and there's plenty of places where a driver can send one up the inside, even on the infield.
Yeah, certainly. There's a few various different places you can launch one up the inside and get a pass done, and even have some very, very good battles as well. In these things, you can almost take the entire track side by side, surprisingly enough. So, looking forward to seeing what's going to happen and who's going to be the biggest mover, because there's certainly a lot of quick guys down the back who are going to make their way forward.
Yes, indeed, and they form up behind the pace truck here. There's going to be a double file rolling start for these drivers. Once again, it's due to the nature of the track that I think we've gone for this style of start. Usually it is a standing start on the grid for the Pro Truck Showdown, but I mean, you only have to take a look at the end of the lap to know that drivers starting from a standstill through those last couple of corners is not always the best idea. But we can get an opportunity here to have a nice tour around this circuit. We're currently on the infield right now. The outside of these corners, you see that tarmac that Mitchell Mccloud is running over. That tarmac can actually be used. There's quite a bit of space there before you get the off-track 1X from the grass. Let's take a brief look at the circuit from above then. Charlotte Motor Speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's one of the meccas of stock car racing in the United States. They got a dirt track just over the road as well, which we're going to be racing at in March with the Cricky Boys Shootout, thanks to Oceanic Dirt Sim Events. But here we go. The turn 11 and 12 chicane is certainly going to be a choke point.
It certainly is going to be quite a choke point, and probably one of the prime opportunities to launch it up the inside of someone as well and get a pass done, with the fact that it's such a heavy braking zone, and one that offers itself to leaving the door open quite a bit with the fact that you run right up against the outside wall too. So going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there and could possibly see some carnage as well.
Absolutely. Just short time to go then until we can get the green light to go racing. There is that turn 11 and 12 chicane. As you can see, it's quite a hard entry into that corner, but it's still incredibly wide too. And those blue sausage curves on the insides of the corners can also be used in these trucks, especially in these trucks because they've got so much ride height and such soft springs. You don't really lose much stability when you go over them. These trucks are already unstable enough, being traditionally dirt racing machines. 3-speed automatic transmission and dirt tires certainly makes for entertaining racing, but we're going to be going for the start very, very soon. The pace truck is going to move away from the field and go for the pit lane, and Mitchell Mccloud is going to control the start from here. They're going to navigate the final 2 corners as the green flag flies. And away they go. Mitchell Mccloud on the power in the second last corner and leading the way across the line as the rest of the field makes their way through the final couple turns. There's a crash at the back. Meanwhile, Sam Mccloud involved in that one, as is Justin Howe, both clattering the wall. But there goes Brenton Hobson up the inside of Mitchell Mccloud, challenging for the lead and just manages to take it. But Mccloud is still there. The door is still open, gives Hobson a little bit of a bump. And Hayden Veld then sticks his nose in, attempting to go for that second place.
Yeah, he certainly tried to make a move there, did Veld, but wasn't quite able to get it done in the end. And Devante is right in this, as well as Mazzomo. Pretty much anybody inside that top 9 you can't really count out at this point, with the fact that they're all nose to tail. So very, very close at the front of the field especially, and certainly going to be anybody's guess as to who's going to get passes done here at the chicane.
Well, Mccloud's already got a nice gap out at the front of the field. You can see that the draft is going to come into play ever so slightly there for Brenton Hobson, and he does gain a bit of momentum as they come onto the back straight, but Hobson's got a lot of pressure from behind from Hayden Velders. There's contact behind. Mazzomo and Jones coming together just about on the run into the chicane, almost getting a spin on, and Jones is looking quite impatient there as he wants to try and get past Mazzomo and into the top 5. They both lost some time there to Sam Devantier, but now the top 3 are well and truly together as we take a look up the front of the field. Hobson is lining up a move on Mccloud at the final chicane up the inside. The turn-in point comes, and just sneaking ahead is Brenton Hobson. Mccloud has to back out of it, and they all clatter each other as they go across the line. Veld might just lose out to Sam Devantier coming into turn 1.
Yeah, looks like it's going to happen, and Veld's going to try hold it around the outside, though, and he's barely going to be able to hold on to that position as well. He definitely got sandwiched between the wall, but Devantier is going to keep holding it there, and he's going to try and hold it around the outside on the way through turn 3 now, and he's going to probably have slightly better traction as well. So still going to be side by side on the way down towards turn 4, and Mazzomo getting involved in there as well.
Indeed, Sam Stride we saw just going off the track in the background as Devantier ran slightly wide. The top 2 keeping themselves together, with Mccloud and Hobson now ahead of the rest of the field by quite some margin. Hayden Veld, meanwhile, has got his hands full with Sam Devantier. He lost quite a bit of time on the infield there on that lap. So Devantier might just line up a move into the chicane. What about Mitch Mccloud? He almost put the move there on Brenton Hobson. Almost contact between the two of them, but they both make it through. Hayden Veld has overshot the chicane meanwhile, and has to re-enter the circuit and serve a slowdown. Devantier now under pressure from Jones and Mazzomo.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Veld's still serving that slowdown, so he's going to end up slotting in behind those 3, or maybe not. He's going to get right involved in this battle 2x2 on the way into the chicane, and he's going to be on the inside, but Mazzomo is going to come out victorious on that one. Or is he, with the fact he didn't quite get the power down, and he's going to have Hayden Veld drive around the outside of him on the way into turn 1, but Mazzomo sends it back up the inside into turn 1 and trying to hold it there, struggling to get the power down with a little bit of sideways action. Now this is really bunched this massive pack up behind them.
Yeah, and Glenn Postlethwaite is right in the middle of it. He was struggling to get past Daniel Stevens just before, but a little bit of contact between Postlethwaite and Stevens sends Daniel in the number 3 wide, and Postlethwaite gets the position and He has now gained an extra position out of that as well, up into P7. Hayden Veld, though, running wide in the infield and unfortunately having to yield to Stevens, but they make contact. Stevens goes into Postlethwaite and Veld getting half spun around there. Contact with Sam Stride. Posy sends it back up the inside to Daniel Stevens and has the inside line for the oval. I love the biffing, barging and the swapping that's going on in this midfield. Meanwhile, for the lead, looks like Hobson and Mccloud still keeping each other incredibly honest here. Mccloud just trying to line up those straight line exits out of the chicane. That is where the momentum will be gained and the position.
Yes, certainly, and he seems to have gotten some nice momentum this time by at least, but what's going to happen here at the front? Mccloud decides to think better of it and just try and set up the exit of the chicane on the way down towards turn 1, but is going to actually lose out a little bit as a result of just setting it up probably a little bit too conservative. But meanwhile, behind them, Taventia, under pressure from Ryan Jones, is going to look up the inside on the way into turn number 1 and get that pass done very, very easily.
Indeed, he is moved done there, and Damien Westbrook has been given a black flag by race control. I think that was for an incident with Bob King at the exit of the chicane on one of those laps. King carrying quite a bit of damage. It looked like Westbrook squeezed him into the exit wall of the chicane, but the race continues. We're going to take a look at the virtual racing school replay to see what happened there between Daniel Stevens going for a big old tumble at turn 1. And that's another sausage roll that he's going to put on the side of his truck. How did that happen? Sam Stride trying to go around the outside of him into turn 1. It looks like Stevens just overshooting that first turn slightly. And Stride trying to go up the inside, just whacked Daniel Stevens out of the way. Fortunately, he was able to remain on the tarmac, but still, it's very frustrating there for Daniel Stevens. And something has happened between Mccloud and Hobson. They are way further apart now than they were. I think that might have been a slowdown for Hobbo.
Yeah, it seems like he might have got one, although not quite. Yeah, must have got one on the way through the first chicane, on the way into turn 1, or the final chicane, because of the fact that he's dropped a lot of time. So, unfortunately, going to be a big gap now for Hobbo to try and close down, but Jones now going to be slowly closing that gap up to Hobbo as well as that's Postlethwaite getting into Mizomo.
That was huge there at turn 1. Mizomo getting a big old whack, and oh no, Gregory Favell on his side. That is down on the front stretch. That's going to be an extra position for Daniel Stevens once again. But it is the final lap of this first race, and Mitchell Mccloud with an unassailable lead now over Brenton Hobson. And the main battle for the podium is between Jones and Devantia. Oh no, Todd Maxfield also suffering some issues there in the opening corners of the lap. There's just not much space there for drivers to work themselves out. Aaron Russell, they're just dropping like flies at the moment. But Mitchell Mccloud has risen above all of it and coming home to take his second win of this season. Remember, he is the reigning champion, so he has something to back himself up there, as there's some battling going on there in the midfield. The 443 and the 78, Justin Howe and Dwayne Priest. That's worked out between them, but only a couple corners to go now for Mitchell Mccloud, and he has proven himself to be the top driver of the night so far, coming into the final couple of turns. Pole position and the win in race 1 for Mitch Mccloud. Excellent drive.
A very, very nice drive to come away with race 1's victory, and certainly stamps authority tonight at least, but still another 2 races, so we'll see what he can do. Hobbo and Ryan Jones round out the podium, and looking like Postlethwaite managed to make himself inside the top 5 as well on that last lap.
So that's going to guarantee him a 5th place start for race 2, get his night back on track, as we just saw some changing for position between the other father and son duo of the grid, Justin and Philip Howe. So there are the results then. Mccloud taking the win by 1.9 seconds from Brenton Hobson, with Jones in 3rd, Devantia and Postlethwaite completing the top 5. Mizomo started in 5th, but has to settle for 6th after that. Hayden Veld, he took a nice careful run in qualifying and unfortunately had to be forced back into 7th with all the biffing and barging that was going on there. Time then for race 2. And the grid is just the same as the results from race 1. It is going to be Mitch Mccloud on pole, but drivers like Ben Snell, they certainly would have been hoping for more out of that. Ricardo Morganti going to start in 13th for this one. And considering how low down he started, well, actually, I'm going to correct myself there. Morganti starting in 11th in race 1. So the big movers in that field, certainly Postlethwaite and to an extent Todd Maxfield and Sam Mccloud, who both gained positions finishing up in the top 20.
Plenty of movers and shakers in that race, especially with the fact that you had a number of quicker drivers starting down the back, and a few of them lost out as well with where they started. So few winners and losers certainly, but 2 more races and see what race 2 is going to provide.
Indeed, we shall. And we've gotten a few good pointers in terms of how the racing is going to go. This opening sequence of turns between turn 1 and 2, you got concrete walls on either side. You definitely don't want to get too much into one of your rivals out of there. Otherwise, you'll see what happened to Daniel Stevens in race 1 happen again. But Mccloud is going to have the advantage here off the start once again. As the pole man, he can control when they go. So I think for Mitch now, it's just a case of eyes forward and try to get away from the pack.
We want to try and get a bit of a breakaway going, and this one possibly going to be a little bit difficult with the fact that he's going to have all those behind him getting his draft, but we'll have to see what he can do, and certainly has the pace under him to try and get that breakaway going as well.
Daniel Stevens as well looking for some redemption in this one with his crashing out in race 1, starting down in 14th after qualifying 7th on the grid for race 1. So certainly potential here for Stevens to get back into the top 10. But considering the drivers around him, drivers like Ricardo Morganti, Ben Snell, Brian Trezise, Todd Maxfield, all very hard races. Daniel's going to have his work cut out for him there, but hopefully he doesn't have to add yet another sausage roll to the side of his truck.
You're certainly hoping to try and minimize the number of sausage rolls that he's going to have on the side of that truck this season, I imagine, if not for the next few seasons at least, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully he does get a reasonable result, though, with the fact that he is starting 14th. Hopefully he can move forward and get one, but we'll have to wait and see, and hopefully no carnage.
Hopefully indeed, but we'll find out when they come into the infield for the first time. There's a fair chance that we might see another incident at the back of the grid because they're going to be further down the circuit than our leaders are. And when the green flag flies, they'll have to try and navigate the last 2 turns at full racing speed side by side. So definitely hoping that they'll be giving each other the space. But you can see that everyone forming up, trying to keep as close to Mitchell Mccloud as they can. Ryan Jones and Sam Devantier leaving no space to spare. Mccloud has gone early for this one, very early, and he leads into the final 2 corners as the green flag flies. He's already secured that there from Brenton Hobson, but Hobbo getting a nice exit out of the final turn, challenging Mccloud into turn 1. Mitch goes defensive, and Hobbo tries to go for the over-under coming into turn 2. Mirror image of what happened in race 1 as Stevens got sent wide there. Almost contact between Mccloud and Hobson, but Mitch with the inside line for turn 3 once again has the race lead. Ryan Jones, though, there in 3rd, wanting to try to get away from Sam Devantier, with Morganti making contact there with Bob King, almost sent around. King having to take avoiding action there.
Yeah, certainly very, very down the back end of the field, and so far so clean as well. So nobody's really had any major incidents at this stage. A few moving through the field as well, gaining a few positions. And Stevens likes of battling very, very hard with Ben Snell, who's going to be on his inside, but at the front of the field at the moment. Ozzy's got his hands full with Devante, who's trying to size them up on the way into the chicane. Probably not going to happen, but Bizoma
hello.
Devante, though, on the way in and gets collected after getting a bit too loose by Howe.
Oh, man. Simon Mazzomo. He was minding his own business trying to make a move there, and then Justin Howe just came in as there's a big crash at the back of the field. There's a truck up and around. That's Ricardo Morganti, and he's been taken for a ride as well. Oh, no. Poor Ricardo.
Certainly if there was one way to get through that chicane, it was certainly one way of doing it, that's for sure.
Goodness me. Obviously, Morganti will be very frustrated from that, but the top three battle, very nice and close as Jones, I think, turned in a bit too early for turn 2 there, clattered the inside wall just briefly. We'll get a virtual racing school replay of that incident for Ricardo Morganti going into the chicane, and that's side-by-side contact with, not quite sure who that was, but he was sent up on his side, and then the rest of the field coming through didn't really have anywhere to go.
Yeah, they didn't, unfortunately, with the fact that there was a truck parked across the entire, well, 3/4 of the track at least, so really, really unfortunate for Morganti there. He's managed to get back on his wheels and get going again, so he's at least going to continue on with this race, but certainly is going to be down the order, unfortunately. But Ryan Jones currently trying to hunt down Brenton Hobson. The gap is slowly closing, but not at a rapid rate of knots. But he's certainly on for a get. Well, he's going to be at least challenge for a second place podium. It closes up massive amounts on the way into the chicane, but just doesn't quite get the traction down enough on the exit.
Yeah, it's actually quite a fast entry to that chicane, despite it being tightened up. Meanwhile, Philip Howe currently sitting in 9th, and Ben Snell has broken into the top 10, wanting to gain some extra positions out of this. He's going to go for the move at the final chicane, potentially. Oh, a bit later on the brakes. Punts Howe in the rear and sends him wide, and that's going to allow him to potentially go for a move up the inside at turn 1. Howe with the traction, though. But there goes Snell up the inside. Don't put him into the wall, mate. There we go. That's how you do it.
Yeah, managed to just get back on by around the outside as well as up the inside. Sorry, it was Ben Snell, so managed to get that one done very, very nicely. But certainly up the front of the field, Mccloud is having his hands full with Brenton Hobson, and Hobson's got his hands full with Ryan Jones, as well as Jones having his hands full with Postlethwaite. So two currently little battle packs going on inside at the top 4, and Postlethwaite sending it up the inside of Ryan Jones as well onto the oval, and Jones is now going to be stuck on the outside on the high line through NASCAR 1 and 2. Postlethwaite, sorry, going to have a slightly better run on the way down towards the chicane. Is going to clear Jones and take the position off him.
Let's see if Jones tries to fight back at the chicane. He is a bit later on the brakes and pushes very hard into the corner, but Posy getting very crossed up through that turn. Oh, no, indeed. That's a move into the chicane there for Sam Stride on Hayden Veld, but doesn't work out ultimately, and that's going to give the run there to the 141 of Ben Snell. Philip Howe's going to try and follow him through here. Have a look at Dwayne Priest behind them as well. This has turned into a proper little battle pack for the last couple of positions in the top 10. So Veld leads the way into the final turn there as Snell up the inside of Howe. Finally manages to get past him at the exit of the final turn, but almost sending it 3 wide. They almost turn each other, and Howe into the back of Snell and bam into the wall. Both of them mounting the tyres, and Snell is properly stuck, as is Howe. I think they're both out.
Yeah, they're certainly both out by the looks of it, being stuck in between the walls to separate the track there, unfortunately. So they're going to be, unfortunately, missing out on the rest of this race, and Snell not too happy with that one as well. So unfortunately, that incident has happened, and that's going to be 2 DNFs.
Brenton Hobson, meanwhile, into the lead. He passed Mitch Mccloud at turn 1. We'll get a virtual racing school replay of that one down in your bottom right-hand corner. Mccloud just running a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1, which allowed Hobbo to sneak up there in the 88, and Mccloud yielding that position, not fighting it too hard because he knows that Ryan Jones and Hobbo's teammate Glenn Postlethwaite will be right there to pounce if they come together.
Absolutely. So they just need to try and not get into each other's hair too much, or they're going to have a four-way battle for the lead on their hands for sure. But certainly a little bit further back, Sam Stride's trying to find a way on by Hayden Veld as well for 7th place currently. Not quite going to be close enough to get a move into the chicane at least, but we'll see what he can do out of the chicane and to turn 1. Is he going to get the power down? Looks like he is quite nicely actually, and going to get the run on the way into turn 1. Doesn't decide on a move though. Oh, very, very close to contact though.
Yeah, incredibly close to contact for these two, and it looks like Veld just getting into the wall there. Todd Maxfield, meanwhile, has been given a black flag. He's going to have to take a trip through pit lane. I tried checking back to see what the specific incident was, but I cannot find it. But Maxfield has had a driving infringement, as that was a big oversteer moment for Hayden Veld. He has to yield to Sam Stride on the run into turn 5, but still pushing up the inside of turn 6. Fortunately for Stride, that camber coming into the left-hander, helping him to stay ahead of the number 53.
Having to stay ahead, but Veld's going to have a nice little run here on the way through NASCAR 1 and 2, and he's going to give him a little bit of a pump draft on the way out of 2 and towards the chicane. Is he going to decide to back out of it? He decides to not go for a move this time by.
Yeah, defensive line there from Sam Stride, but compromises his line through the chicane, which allows Veld to almost drop alongside him on exit again. There's potential for a move there for sure. Meanwhile, the top 4, Glenn Postlethwaite has overshot the final chicane and allowed Ryan Jones to sneak up his inside and take 3rd place coming into turn 1. And Posy was right up on the back of Mitchell Mccloud too. So as he gets the move done on Jones once again, that's some valuable time lost there for Glenn Postlethwaite, because remember, this is the penultimate lap.
It certainly is. So time's starting to run out a little bit here for Glenn Postlethwaite to get to the front of this field, and time's starting to run out for Mitchell Mccloud to get back into the lead of this race as well. So to see what Posy can do and what Mccloud can do in these last 2 laps, and who's going to come out victorious, because it's very, very close at the moment. But we get a Virtual Racing School replay of Hayden Veld, who I'm going to say has got the move done here on Sam Stride, and Dwayne Priest in the background getting very, very crossed up, and Veld using plenty of curb. Oh, we'll pull up. That's the curb doesn't even exist at that point.
Goodness me. Slow down, anyone, but that's what allowed Hayden Veld to sneak up the inside into turn 1. It is coming up to the end of lap 6 now, as Veld, unfortunately, having to yield to Dwayne Priest there. He's just made a move on him. Brenton Hobson is jetted ahead of everyone. That might have been a slowdown for Mitch Mccloud, because here comes Glenn Postlethwaite up the inside, which becomes the outside for the final chicane, and clattering the side of each other. They both almost go off the circuit there. Posy definitely does, and Ryan Jones is going to sneak up the inside of Mccloud into turn 1. No, he's not. Mccloud goes for the early turn-in, tried to block Jones, and hits Postlethwaite as well. They've all gone into the wall, and this is going to open up a potential here for Philip Howe to get onto the podium, and he is indeed there in 3rd place, pressuring Ryan Jones. But I think a couple of guys in that battle going to be extremely unhappy with what just transpired.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be no love lost at all between those 3 in the next race, that's for sure.
Oh, my God. And Jones and Howe came together as well. That's going to let Justin Howe through? No, it's not. Justin Howe getting into the grass and letting them both back by. So Sam Devantia is the main beneficiary out of that. Unfortunately, Mitch Mccloud is still stuck on the outside wall into turn 1. So he is going to be out of this one. That's some valuable championship points lost. But Brenton Hobson has got absolutely nothing to fight for at the moment. Coming into the chicane, he has the lead by 6.2 seconds over oh no, Glenn Postlethwaite is out as well. He's escaped back to the pits, so that's going to be nothing doing there for him. Basically means that Sam Devantia up into 2nd place, Ryan Jones in 3rd, and Justin Howe in 4th. Which is going to be quite the interesting haul of championship points for those drivers. But Brenton Hobson, through the final couple of turns, he survived the carnage and takes the win in race 2 here at the Pro Truck Showdown. Sam Devantier coming across the line to take second. Unfortunately, Ryan Jones wouldn't be able to get that second place in the end. Justin Howe in fourth, as now Aiden Veld recovering to finish in the top 5. Excellent run. And Daniel Stevens recovering to 6th too. A great run for the number 3, Bob King. It seems, in 7th, unless I'm mistaken. Dwayne Priest has taken 7th, actually, with King finishing in 8th. So the timing is a little interesting there as well. But there we go. Brenton Hobson by 6.7 seconds from Sam Devantier. Fantastic way to jet off this night. It's another win to add to the tally for Brenton Hobson, now standing at 5 wins for the season.
It's certainly a very, very dominant attempt at this, well, tilt at this season so far, and certainly going to be aiding to that with another win.
Indeed he is. Well, now it's time for the warm-up session as we check out the unofficial results from race 2. It's Hobson, Devantier and Jones, the podium. A bit more of a spaced-out finish this time around, but it was very close there between Veld, Stevens and King for 5th, 6th and 7th. Mazzomo, Favell and Russell finishing quite close to each other as well for the top 10.
Yes, very, very close finishes there inside that top 10, and then obviously the next page, you're going to have Sam Mccloud, Brian Treziz, Ricardo Morganti recovering, and then obviously Dwayne Priest, Glenn Postlewaite, Mitch Mccloud, Philip Howe, Damien Westbrook, Todd Maxfield, Sam Stride, and Ben Snell around out the field.
Yeah, there was retirements there for Stride, Snell, Postlethwaite, McLeod, Howe, and Westbrook as well. But now it's time for the 5-minute warm-up between our second and third races. You're watching the Pro Truck Showdown thanks to Scumander Coffee Mug and Hot Toddy's Heating Installs. We're going to be back very shortly for the 9-lap final race here at Charlotte. You're watching the Pro Truck Showdown round 4 from Charlotte Motor Speedway. We've had 2 races so far that have had quite a bit of carnage for some of our front runners here today, and many drivers quite unhappy with what's been going on in the field today. We're going to get a replay here of Aaron Russell's incident here. Let's have a look at what happened to Aaron. Wow. Okay. The number 76 of Gregory Favell massively compromised on the front stretch, and Aaron Russell sent absolutely sky high. And I don't know, Cam, if we want to give a couple of opinions, I reckon that the racing that's been going on here tonight, the drivers could definitely afford to be cleaner, particularly the incident that we saw before when Mitch Mccloud went hard into turn one with Glenn Postlethwaite. I think that the drivers need to clean up their act a bit if they want this series to keep going like it is.
Yeah, there's certainly been a few various different incidents where there's been just a little bit too much of putting their ego first rather than actual racing ability, unfortunately. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens at race 3. Hopefully it's a little bit cleaner and there's less carnage going on, but certainly there's been probably a few too many incidents involving drivers which probably shouldn't happen.
Indeed. Well, it's going to be 9 laps for the final race here tonight, so maybe that will encourage some drivers to be a bit more patient when making maneuvers. The warm-up is coming to an end. The expression session is now over, and Brenton Hobson has the pole for this final race, having taken victory in race 2. It's going to be Sam Devantia joining him on the second row here, on the first row, sorry, with Ryan Jones and Justin Howe on row 2. Hayden Veld and Daniel Stevens starting in 5th and 6th, and Stevens' night has certainly been patchy. 7th in race 1, 7th place start in race 1, 14th place finish, but then back up to 6th for race 2. Bob King and Simon Mazzomo 7th and 8th, with Gregory Favell and Aaron Russell rounding out the top 10 here.
Sam Mccloud and Brian Trezise on row 6. Row 7, Ricardo Morganti and Dwayne Priest. Row 8, Glenn Postlethwaite and Mitchell Mccloud. We'll see what those two can do. Starting down there in 15th and 16th, 17th and 18th will be Philip Howe and Damien Westbrook, and then Sam Strine and Ben Snell rounding out the 21-car field.
Yeah, Ben Snell going to be looking for some massive redemption here tonight. He hasn't finished inside the top 10 tonight, which is a shame for him. He took 2 podiums at Silverstone last round, second place in at Phillip Island, second place in races 2 and 3. But it's going to be a tough task for him to make his way up to the front of this field now as they pull away behind the pace truck.
Going to be very, very busy trying to make his way through the field, so we'll see what he's going to be able to do. But certainly a lot of mixed, very, very mixed grid, that's for sure. The fact that you've got a number of drivers up and down the field in places they probably usually wouldn't be in their normal circumstances, but it is what it is.
It is indeed, as the rear of the field took a bit more time to get away from their starting spots, but they'll form up in due course for this final race. Now, when the pole man goes is what should be determined here. Mitchell Mccloud started pole for the first 2 races of the night. In race 1, he went pretty much on the green flag. In race 2, he went early to gain an advantage through the last couple corners before lap 1 started. So what do you think Brenton Hobson's going to try and do?
It's very, very hard to tell with the fact that McLeod's kind of controlled the start, and we haven't really seen Hobbo control the start this round at least. So it's anybody's guess as to what he's going to do, but you'd have to think that he'd try and set himself up so that he gets the best possible run and clears everybody before they even get to turn 1. So I'd say he's probably going to want to go early.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Field getting lovely and close together coming onto the oval, and the apron is going to be an issue as well. Drivers can use the apron when they're racing, passing another truck, but you don't have a huge advantage going down there, as it's obviously much flatter than the banking, and you won't be able to carry as much momentum around that corner. Another one of the points we're going to have to be looking out for in this third race is once again the bus stop chicane on the back stretch. We saw quite a bit of biff and barge through there. Justin Howe being one of the drivers that went in there incredibly hard and cleaned up a couple of other drivers.
Yeah, there was certainly a little bit of carnage into that bus stop chicane in that last race, and even in race 1 as well. There's a few drivers falling victim to those overshooting their braking marker and unfortunately pile driving their way into there. So we'll have to see if anybody else falls victim to that chicane. It is a little deceiving with how tight it is and how much speed you can carry, but certainly you do still have to hit your marks per se. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully there's no major incidents there.
Indeed. So Brenton Hobson goes very early, coming into the final chicane, does what Mitch Mccloud did in the previous race. They go by our camera position, and the green flag flies. Jones slots into third. It's Justin Howe in fourth, Hayden Veld in fifth. It's side by side between Daniel Stevens and Bob King, and King goes hard into turn 1, just avoids getting into the back of Hayden Veld, who then clatters the wall between turns 1 and 2. Very difficult to tell where the sides of your truck are, and side by side again between Favell and Stevens. Daniel Stevens has lost out a bit on this start. He's got Simon Mazzomo right behind him there, trying to line up a move into turns 5 and 6, taking the wider line then around the outside into this challenging sequence of corners, as up ahead there was a bit of an issue. A concertina. Favell got into King, who then got into Veld. They've lost a little bit of time there to the top 4, and it's 2nd to 4th that are embroiled in a battle at the moment, with Sam Devantia leading the charge against Brenton Hobson.
Apparently leading the charge very, very nicely is Hobson with that start that he's had, but Jones looking to come onto the attack on Sam Devantia into the chicane. Not quite going to get deep enough, though, on the brakes to get a move done, but Howe's pressuring him massively, gives him a little bit of a bump on the way through the chicane and a little bit of a bump on to the wall on the exit as well, does Justin Howe. But Ryan Jones coming back at Devantia on the way towards NASCAR 4 and towards the chicane as well. He's looking to the high side towards the inside for the chicane. He throws it in deep as he can and goes right up over the cubes, gets that move well and truly sealed, and Devantia struggling to get power down, and as a result is going to have to slot in behind Justin Howe.
And that is Howe now into third. Let's see what Ryan Jones can then do then versus Brenton Hobson. We'll compare lap times as they make their way through. Justin Howe, though, losing out to Sam Devantia in turn 2, and right behind them is Hayden Veld, who wants to get back up into that top 4. He had the inside line, and there's contact between Howe and Devantia. Devantia having to recover there down that following straight, as Favell, it seems, serving a slowdown behind. Howe's been sent off the track there. Hayden Veld pushing him very hard, and no position lost, though, for Justin Howe. He can live to fight another day, but I'm going to be very interested in that top 2 battle in a few laps. But this pack in the mid-pack is certainly where it's at right now. What kind of moves are going to be made into the bus stop chicane? Hopefully not many carnage ones.
Yes, certainly, but Justin Howe's got a run on Hayden Veld. He's not going to look to the inside, though. It gets very, very close to the back bumper of Veld, and now Devantia is right back into this little battle as well. Looks like Stevens cutting the chicane as well, so unfortunately he's going to have a slowdown. He's going to serve, and is going to have to slot in behind possibly even Aaron Russell too, but even then, possibly making his way through the field quite nicely. Actually, he's already up 5 spots, make that 6 now, with the fact that he's going to be inside the top 10 in P9.
Indeed, and Ryan Jones is really jetting up to the back of Brenton Hobson now. Jones not getting a classified lap time there. He got an off track somewhere along those lines, but the top 2 well and truly together now, and Jones has definitely got the blinders on. He wants to pass Brenton Hobson for that lead. As we take a look at the rest of the field going through the opening corners, Veld still on the final podium spot, with Howe and Devantia trying to pressure him behind. Justin Howe getting into the grass, lost a bit of time there to Veld, and Devantia wanting to take advantage as best he can. Meanwhile, behind them, Bob King at the front of the train for 6th on back. Glenn Postlethwaite in the number 95 there, going up the inside, nailing the throttle and getting up the inside of King into the turn coming onto the oval. That is position secured for him. Simon Mazzomo behind in 8th place is being treated to quite the show here. Let's see if Bob King can send one up the inside of Postlethwaite once again at the chicane. The onboard view quite obscured, but Postlethwaite goes defensive then into the chicane, and the wheel work you see from Bob King It's very vague steering on these trucks. You really got to have almost a sixth sense to drive them quickly.
You certainly do, especially with the driving style that they require, with the fact you've got to be very, very smooth and very, very precise in the way that you send it into the corner, not too aggressively, but also aggressive enough that you don't lose too much time. But you can see here, Mizomo currently having a lot of pressure from Daniel Stevens from behind, so we'll see what Mizomo can do. If he can keep up with Bob King, then he might be okay, but Stevens looks to the inside with a big old send, a little bit of contact for good measure on the way to turn one, but Mizomo still holds on to the place. And now Stevens going to be side by side with Russell, who's going to end up in the wall. They're both going to end up in the wall, and now here comes Bell around the outside of Stevens as they head through turn two, and not quite going to get that move done.
Oh, yeah, and Stevens parked it on the exit there. Favell almost had the better exit, but had to back out of it. He's lost 2 positions then to Aaron Russell and Sam Stride. So now, side by side between Stride and Favell. Gregory unable to keep himself up to the side of Sam Stride there. That is position gained in the number 20, and that's a problem further back in the field. That's the 141 of Ben Snell, who's continued to suffer issues here tonight. It's going to not be a very good points paying round there for Ben. Meanwhile, the battle for third. It's a 4-car train headed up by Hayden Veld. He's got Devantier, Howe, and Postlethwaite in hot pursuit. I got to say, Glenn Postlethwaite's recovery here has been magnificent. It's only lap 4, and he has gained 9 positions. It's going to be 10 now, as that looks to be a slowdown for Sam Devantier.
Yeah, it certainly does, and very, very nice recovery drive by Postlethwaite. This will certainly make up for the disappointments of race 2, that's for sure, but you certainly still got a little bit of work to do, trying to go to the inside of Justin Howe, who's going defensive on the way into turn 1, runs a little bit deep, and that's going to allow Postlethwaite to try and get Howe down and get back up the inside on the way into turn 2. He's going to be on the outside of turn 3 and not quite going to be able to get that move done in the end. But look back here as Mizomo, Aaron Russell, Sam Stride, and a few others all battling very, very hard as Mizomo runs a little bit deep, nearly ends up in the wall, 3 wide all the way through turn 4, barely going to come out the other side. And Mizomo and Favell going to be side by side on the run, and Stride trying to stick his nose in there, and it's still going on. All bit of contact between them, and still 3 wide. They somehow haven't crashed. And Mizomo trying to keep alongside, a little bit of contact between them, and Mizomo clattering all the cones on the way through, and that's probably going to be slowdown.
Yeah, most likely. So Mizomo now onto the back of that train. That's a shame, but we look a bit further up ahead. Damien Westbrook, one of the big beneficiaries out of all of that. He was behind all of these drivers at the start of the lap, and now going for the move on Gregory Favell to potentially try and take 10th place. Tries the tighter exit out of the chicane, but gets a bit compromised, and Sam Stride now sees an opportunity to gain that position back. The laps are absolutely flying by here. We are well past half race distance now. Let's see if Stride goes for the move on Westbrook into the final chicane. Not going to happen this time around, but he'll be counting on Westbrook going a bit too deep and opening up a run into turn 1. There we go. That is it there. And Westbrook going massively defensive versus Sam Stride and keeping the position for now. We heard just before that there was a slowdown for Glenn Postlethwaite. He's dropped off the back of Sam Devantier and Justin Howe. So Hayden Veld now has a bit more breathing room.
He certainly does, and he's slotted in behind Devantier as well. So he's got a little bit of work to do to get back inside that top 5, but he hasn't lost too much time as a result. So not too big of a loss, or could have been worse, but certainly he'll want to try and recover that lost time and try to move back through towards a top 5 finish, if not onto the podium.
Damien Westbrook still trying to get a leg up here on Gregory Favell and rid himself of Sam Stride. He's on the verge of cottoning on to the battle just ahead of them between Daniel Stevens and Aaron Russell, and it looks like there's going to be a move into the chicane there for Russell. He pulls out on Daniel Stevens, but does not go for the move as there's a locked break up ahead of him. That might have been King or Postlethwaite. Stevens, though, protecting the position, and Russell massively compromised as for the lead, Ryan Jones on the back of Brenton Hobson. He's been pressuring Hobbo quite hard this race, but just hasn't been able to get the move done. of course, he's got plenty of opportunities left to gain some time here on the championship leader.
Yeah, he certainly does have a little bit of time. Still 3 laps to go in this race, so still got a little bit of time in his pocket to try and get to the lead of this race and win this one in race 3, but certainly still going on behind in that middle pack with Aaron Russell and Gregory Favell still managing to hold off Westbrook, who's just starting to drop off the back of them a little bit, and they're actually starting to catch up to Daniel Stevens as well.
And in the bottom right corner, you see the battle for the lead as we take a look at Russell up the inside of Favell coming into turn 5 and trying to complete the move at turn 6, but had to take a tighter turn there. Favell maintaining the line then into these turns, and Westbrook sees the opportunity and tries to go up the inside of Russell. There's contact between them. Russell sent slightly wide on the exit, and now side by side between he and Westbrook, their exits have both been compromised. And well, the question now for Sam Stride is, where the hell do I go?
Yes, certainly. Where do you go with the fact that you've got a little bit of a roadblock going on, and that's possibly going to have been a little bit of contact there on the way in. And Westbrook's gone deep. They've all nearly gone deep. Westbrook's gone the deep, so that's probably going to be a slowdown as a result of that. But we'll see what happens. He's got a very, very good run off the corner there. He's going to try and find a way on by looking left and right. He's going to give him a little bit of a bump draft on the way through NASCAR 4 as well for good measure. And still not quite going to be able to get him done. I'm surprised he didn't send it up the inside there, but nevertheless decides to think better of it and just sit in behind for the time being. Now Russell back on the train of this.
Indeed, looks like this battle is going to last quite a while as Stridey went for the move there on Westbrook. Slight contact between them, but Westbrook keeps it out of the wall at turn 1. See, that's the kind of racing we want to see in this series. A little bit of touching, but no crazy incidents. And Stride backing out of it there, coming into turn 3, and that's compromised. Aaron Russell and Simon Mazzomo behind. Westbrook, though, to the front of that train. Now he can focus on chasing down Gregory Favell, as long as he doesn't make a mistake. So, Bob King, I think, having one of the best runs of the night here, up in 7th place. And he's got Daniel Stevens and Gregory Favell for close company behind as we continue looking at this this fight here. Westbrook, a good exit from the infield. And it looks like Sam Stride's going to have his hands full with Aaron Russell pretty soon. But, am I seeing hints of a compromised run here from Westbrook? Lacking straight line speed. Sam Stride going for the move as it's on for the lead. Stride's gone for a big old slide, and Jones harassing the back end of Hobson.
And Jones took a lot of curve that time by, and gone in between the two of them as nearly Hobbo gets dumped into pit lane, but barely going to manage to hold on to the leader of the race there.
Indeed, and the fight is continuing here with Damien Westbrook. Gregory Favell's up the inside, and oh my goodness, it's messy coming through the final 2 turns. Aaron Russell can't take advantage of this, and Daniel Stevens, well, he went for a slide at the chicane, and now open the door to Westbrook, and oh no, another sausage roll there for Stevens, and up onto the wall. Fortunately, he's landed on his wheels. He can keep going.
Does it count as a sausage roll then if he's landed on his wheels? But certainly luckily to get away with that one. But yeah, unfortunate for Stevens there. But it's still going on between those 3 at the front of the field. And Jones got a slowdown, so he's dropped well off the back of Hobbo now. He's going to sail on to get pretty much a free victory, but it's on for 3rd place quite intensely as Veld, Howe, and Bosselay all within nothing of each other. Howe had to go to the apron to avoid a little bit, well, holding on to a slide after contact. They're going to be nearly, they're going to be 3 wide on the way. Again, who's going to break the latest? Bosselway's going to try, nearly hold on to it, but Howe's thereabouts. Veld's got a very, very good run. He's going to get the drag race out off the corner and get ahead of Justin Howe. It is the final lap, and Brenton Hobson coming across the line to take victory once again here. Fantastic night from Hobson, and Ryan Jones taking 2nd. He would have hoped for victory there as, Sam Devanti, a big lockup at the final turn. It looks like that is going to be Glenn Postlethwaite taking 3rd place there as Howe and Veld were compromised on that final lap. The race continues to finish behind. Sam Devanti takes 6th, Bob King in 7th with Damien Westbrook
managing to get position 8 there. Sam Stride recovering to 9th place from a 20th place start. Certainly props to him for that. But I think biggest props of all to Brenton Hobson, the championship leader, showing why he's at the top.
Definitely 2 wins tonight and a second place to add to that, to come away with a very, very nice point haul and extend that championship lead over his teammate who didn't quite have as good of a night as he did.
And Ricardo Morganti coming across the line to finish out our finishers here tonight. So, final results then from the last race. It's Hobson, Jones and Postlethwaite, your top 3. Some good points again for Glenn there. Justin Howe and Hayden Veld rounding out the top 5. With Sam Devantier. Oh, hang on a minute. Looks to me like that was a penalty there for Hayden. He's been put back into 14th place, so now Justin Howe claims 4th, and Devantier rounds out the top 5. It's King, Westbrook, Stride, Russell, and Mazomo who round out your top 10.
Interesting as to why that penalty's come about for Hayden, unfortunately, but he's dropped down into 14th, and obviously Favel 11th. Stevens recovers to 12th in the end after that rollover at turn 1. Morganti in 13th, Veld 14th, 15th. The Trezise, Howe, Snell, Mccloud, Maxfield, Priest, and Sam Mccloud round out the field.
Yeah, all of those drivers unfortunately not making it to the finish thanks to the very hard and physical racing that we have seen tonight. Well, that brings to an end proceedings for the night. It's another interesting round there of the Pro Truck Showdown, but I think what is conclusive is that Brenton Hobson, the round winner, and continuing to consolidate his championship lead, he's starting to emerge as the main driver to beat in this series. Well, if he hasn't emerged like that already. We hope you join us for the 5th round of the series next Tuesday night. The track is once again a mystery. We're not going to know until pretty much the night before where these drivers are going to be racing at. So make sure to stay tuned to SimSpeed TV for that particular round. And if you're interested in giving this series a run, check out Pro Truck Showdown on Facebook. You can get all the details there. Thank you once again to Scumander Coffee Mug and Hot Toddy's Heating Installs for your support of this series. My name's Reese Gardner. It was Cameron Dance alongside me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy making everything happen behind the scenes from SimSpeed TV. It's bye for now, but not forever.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
It's very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?